Welcome back, everyone, to The Deep Dive. Our mission, as always, is to really cut through the noise, get you those critical insights from the sources you've shared. Today, we're zeroing in on that whirlwind of headlines from around October 2nd and 3rd, 2025.
Yeah, it's a packed couple of days. We're going to be looking at everything from, well, some pretty heavy social issues and justice updates to big infrastructure plans and even, what's happening on the global stage, all through the lens of El Salvador.
Exactly. And what really jumps out is this kind of tension, right, between domestic pressures, some really tough stories we need to cover, and then these reports of economic activity, security successes, big projects.
It's a real balancing act in the narrative. You've got these deeply personal tragedies and systemic social issues on one side, and then this very visible push for national progress and security on the other. Understanding that contrast, that's kind of key for you, the listener, to really grasp the climate right now.
Couldn't agree more. You can't really talk about security without talking about social welfare or investment without asking who benefits. But before we really jump into the deep end, we do have an important message to share. Friday, October 3, 2025. Welcome to the News El Salvador SV podcast. This space for conversation and reflection, where we explore current affairs in El Salvador and the world together. Search for this podcast on Pandora, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Enter News El Salvador SV on Google, and you'll find many options. Or search for us on your favorite platform. You'll surely find us. You can find the PayPal link in the description of this podcast content. Now, you can make your contribution or donation via QR code. You'll find it on the cover of this content. Your contribution or donation, no matter how small it is $1, $2, or whatever. It helps us stay connected and pay for cloud service billing. Collaborate, follow, share, and comment. Okay, with that important bit covered, let's dive straight into, well, maybe the toughest part of this news cycle. The human cost of abandonment and violence.
Yeah, we have to start with a number that's it's hard to wrap your head around, honestly. Close to 500,000 children in El Salvador, abandoned by one or even both parents. The sources put it near 500,000. 500,000.
Okay, let's unpack this. That number, it's staggering. It points to a level of social fragility that, maybe doesn't always make the top headlines.
It really doesn't. And I mean, this isn't just a statistic, right? It represents a huge crisis in terms of care, support, a whole generation impacted.
But the detail that really tells the story here, the one about the social structure, is the gender breakdown.
Exactly. The data was specific for 2024, a massive 79% of those abandonment cases, almost 4 out of 5, attributed specifically to the father leaving.
79%. Wow, that just shifts the whole narrative, doesn't it? It's not just about poverty in general. It points to a crisis of male responsibility, maybe.
That's certainly how it reads, and the downstream effects are huge. I mean, think about the immense burden that places on single mothers, on grandparents, the wider family network.
So what does this number truly tell us about the social structure? It tells us the state safety net, which is probably already stretched, has to try and fill this massive gap left by fathers. It creates this cycle, vulnerability, poverty.
Absolutely. It's a cycle that security measures alone just can't fix. You need huge long-term social investment to even begin addressing the root causes. Kids growing up without that support are just statistically more vulnerable to poverty, crime.
And maybe even repeating the pattern themselves later on. It's that deep undercurrent we talked about.
Precisely. And that vulnerability, sadly, connects directly to the ongoing issue of violence against women. The tragic case of Natalia, the gastronomy student, was back in the news.
Yes, Natalia's story. Just heartbreaking. She was so close, wasn't she? Months away from being a chef.
Just months, and her life cut short by feminicide. The family's pain. It was so raw in the reports. Her grandmother's quote really sticks with you. Her friends behaved like Judas because they could have saved her.
Oof. That implies such a sense of betrayal, doesn't it? Beyond the horrific act itself, the feeling that maybe it could have been stopped.
It speaks volumes about the complexities, the missed signals maybe, that often surround these terrible crimes. But there is some movement on the justice front.
Right. The update was that on October 2nd, the accused in her case was formally sent to prison.
Yeah.
Which is, a necessary step.
A crucial step for justice for Natalia and her family. But it happens against this backdrop of, frankly, pervasive threat.
Pervasive is, unfortunately, the right word. That other statistic was just chilling. 22 women, victims of sexual violence every day in El Salvador.
22 a day. When you put these stories and stats together, you realize that judicial responses, while needed, are reactions to a crisis that's ongoing and systemic.
And we saw other examples of the courts trying to send strong messages, didn't we?
We did. There was the case of Maria Antonia Preza. She was sentenced to 30 years for the aggravated homicide of her own daughter. Just unthinkable.
30 years. And then another one, a feminicide in Sonsonet, resulted in a 40-year sentence.
These aren't light sentences. They show the judiciary is taking these specific crimes extremely seriously, aiming for deterrence, maybe, and definitely retribution.
Alongside those court actions, the police are making immediate arrests in domestic violence situations too.
Yes, boots on the ground stuff, like the arrest of Eric Josue Marin Guatemala, he's 41, in Chinameca.
And the charges weren't minor, were they? It was hitting, sexual abuse, and theft from his partner.
Exactly. The formal charges listed were violation, lesiones, and hurto. So rape, injuries, and theft. That combination tells you the severity they're dealing with. It wasn't just an argument.
Right. It suggests a pattern of serious abuse crossing multiple criminal lines. And this is happening while police are also investigating other violent crimes, like that homicide in Code Peak.
Correct. A 66-year-old man assassinated with a knife or white weapon. Police intelligence teams are on that. So it's this dual focus, public safety, but also trying to tackle violence within the home.
Okay, let's pivot a bit now. From physical violence to a different kind of conflict, the ideological sort, there's a big policy debate heating up in the Ministry of Education.
Yeah, this one definitely touches on the global culture war discussions. Minister Carla Trigueros issued an instruction basically prohibiting inclusive language in all public schools and related institutions.
Prohibiting inclusive language.
Okay.
And the official reason.
The ministry stated it's to, quote, guarantee the proper use of the language, meaning Spanish, and importantly, to protect children from ideological interference that they say affects integral development.
Protecting children, right.
Yeah.
And that's often the framing for these kinds of policies. It's basically drawing a line against gender-neutral language evolution.
Pretty much. Rejecting terms like Latinx or using E endings instead of O or A in Spanish. But what's kind of fascinating is that this high-level linguistic policy change happened alongside, well, a much more grounded cultural ban.
You mean the haircut?
Yes. The viral Edgar haircut is also now explicitly prohibited in schools.
So on one hand, tackling global linguistic trends, and on the other, policing a specific popular hairstyle. It's quite the combo.
It is. Both seem to point towards, reinforcing traditional norms and a kind of resistance to perceived outside influences, whether linguistic or stylistic.
And schools are also starting the Civic Month with a new demerit system. Seems like a general tightening of discipline across the board.
That's the overall impression, yes. A focus on structure, conformity in language, appearance, and behavior.
All right, let's shift gears again, moving away from social and cultural debates. Let's look at the foundations the government is trying to build. Section 2, governance, security, and economic development, starting with the budget.
Okay, so we have some top-level number for the 2026 budget. The National Assembly's expenditure is set to be maintained at $46.9 million.
$46.9 million just for the Assembly's operations. But the catch is, we don't actually know the details, right?
That's the thing. The figure is there, but the detailed breakdown of where that money goes hasn't been published. And that lack of transparency, well, it naturally invites questions.
Especially when you put it next to other needs, like the university scholarships.
Exactly. The integration program scholarships, which are crucial for developing talent, are projected to need about $15 million for 2026. 15.
So $46.9 million to run the legislature versus $15 million to fund higher education for potentially thousands of students. That comparison is pretty stark, isn't it?
It is. I mean, obviously the legislature needs funding to function. It's a core part of government. But when the operational cost is over 3 times the amount earmarked for those scholarships, the optics, they're not great, especially given the social fragility we were just discussing.
It raises questions about priorities. But there is significant money allocated for big projects. What was that figure?
A huge amount. $546.67 million specifically earmarked in the 2026 budget for strategic works. That's where the big infrastructure ambitions lie.
And we're seeing some of that hit the ground running, like the work on the Comalapa Highway.
Yes, Foviol, the road fund, is reinforcing a slope at kilometer 6. That highway is vital, connects the capital to the airport. Fixing a landslide-prone spot there is critical for the economy, for safety. It's not just routine maintenance.
And the other big one, the really visible project, is the metro cable, the cable car system.
That's right. Construction is actually scheduled to begin this month, October. That's a massive urban mobility project aiming to tackle the terrible traffic congestion for commuters coming into San Salvador.
Huge potential impact on daily life for thousands, if it works as planned. Better quality of life, maybe more productivity?
That's the goal. It's a very visible symbol of modernizing the city's infrastructure.
Now, switching back to security, but at a higher level, the legal rulings. We saw some major convictions related to past government dealings with gangs.
Yeah, this was significant. Former officials Morchant, Lara, Valencia, and Lures were convicted. Sentences of 28 and 18 years for negotiating with gangs.
28 and 18 years. That sends a powerful message, doesn't it? About accountability, even years later.
Absolutely. It basically closes a really dark chapter where parts of the state were, actively dealing with these criminal groups for political reasons. The message is clear. Negotiating with groups classified as terrorists carries severe long-term consequences.
So that's the historical accountability. But the day-to-day crackdown, that continues relentlessly.
Oh, definitely. We saw the capture of Sergio David Estrada Salas, identified as an MS gang member in Soyapango, found with drugs, cell phones, the usual indicators. The pressure is constant.
And these ongoing operations are revealing more about how these groups operated, right?
Yeah.
Like the extortion network in the historic center.
Yes, that came out of an ongoing trial against 32 MS members. They were apparently running a pretty extensive extortion racket right in the heart of the capital. It shows that even as public spaces are cleared, dismantling the underlying economic structures of these gangs is a whole other battle fought in the courts.
Okay, let's look for some brighter spots. Shifting to economic indicators. Remittances are always key.
Hugely important. The data showed over $36.3 million sent back just in 2024 by people on temporary work visas in the U.S. That money goes directly into supporting families, stabilizing local economies. It's a lifeline.
And we're seeing signs of confidence from private investors, too. The super selectos reopening.
That's a big one. Reopening after 3 years, backed by a $6 million investment. That signals real belief in the local market and likely the improved security situation. It's a long-term bet.
Plus other initiatives, like BSE supporting local restaurants.
Yep, the second edition of Hoytoka promoting local gastronomy. That's great for smaller businesses. And on a larger scale, BIAQSR got the green light to acquire Panda Express operations in El Salvador. So activity in food retail and service.
Okay, so positive signs there. But there's this big shadow looming, isn't there? This pension time bomb.
Ah, yes. This requires serious attention. When analysts use language like time bomb, they mean the situation is urgent and the potential fallout is massive.
How bad is it? What are the numbers?
Well, the national pension debt increased by $444 million just through August of this year. $444 million in 8 months. That's a staggering rate of growth for that liability.
Why is it growing so fast? What's the core problem?
Essentially, the government's been paying out benefits that weren't fully funded by contributions. It's like running up a credit card bill. The $444 million shows the impact of compounding interest and the sheer size of the unfunded promises. And the real kicker is the uncertainty.
Uncertainty. How so?
The IMF confirmed the government is still finalizing the actuarial study. That's the detailed analysis needed to figure out exactly how big the total pension debt really is now and in the future.
And without that study?
You can't make a credible plan to fix it. You don't know the full scope of the problem. So this huge, rapidly growing debt just hangs over the country's finances. It's probably the biggest unresolved fiscal issue right now.
Wow. Okay, that's definitely something we need to keep tracking. The release of that study will be critical. Friday, October 3, 2025. Welcome to the News El Salvador SV podcast, this space for conversation and reflection, where we explore current affairs in El Salvador and the world together. Search for this podcast on Pandora, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Enter News El Salvador SV on Google and you'll find many options. Or search for us on your favorite platform, you'll surely find us. You can find the PayPal link in the description of this podcast content. At WP Insure, you can make your contribution or donation via QR code. You'll find it on the cover of this content. Your contribution or donation, no matter how small it is $1, $2, or whatever, it helps us. Stay connected and pay for cloud service billing. Collaborate, follow, share, and comment. All right, we're back on the deep dive. Now let's get into section 3. We're looking at how that heavy investment in security seems to be paying off in areas like tourism and also connecting El Salvador to some major international headlines.
So this ties directly into the government's strategy. Vice President Felix Ochoa explicitly stated it at an AQP meeting, the administration's core bet on security and economy. They see them as intrinsically linked.
And that bet seems to be yielding results, at least regionally. with tourism from Honduras, for example.
Definitely. The expectation is for 37,000 Honduran visitors just during the upcoming Semana Morazánica. That's a huge number. It's direct evidence that the perception of improved safety is drawing people in from neighboring countries.
37,000. That's impressive. And the report said the logistics were smooth, too. Border crossings and such.
Yeah, apparently the attention was agile and efficient, which is important, right? You want those visitors to have a good experience from the moment they arrive, make it easy for them to spend their money.
But is it just regional tourism, or are they looking further afield?
They are. There was news following a forum in Madrid suggesting El Salvador is successfully positioning itself in Europe as an emerging tourist destination.
Europe? That's a different market altogether.
Exactly. European tourists often look for longer stays, cultural experiences, ecotourism. If they can tap into that market, it makes the tourism industry much more sustainable and diverse, less reliant on just short regional trips.
Okay, so security helps tourism. But security also means projecting strength, controlling borders.
Yeah.
Like that massive drug seizure by the Navy.
Oh, yeah, this was, described as historic. The Navy seized a drug shipment valued at $44.8 million. $44.8 million.
That's an incredible amount. And where did this happen? Close to shore?
Not even close. That's the other staggering part. The interception was 1,150 nautical miles off the coast. 1,150.
That's way out in the Pacific. That shows some serious capability, doesn't it?
Immense capability. Operational reach. It positions the Salvadoran Navy as a serious player in combating these huge transnational drug networks. It's a major security statement, not just an internal policing matter.
Okay, so projecting strength externally. But internally, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the whole issue around migration, especially with the U.S., that tension is still very high.
Absolutely. It continues to dominate, and we saw it play out in some really difficult personal cases this week. The human cost is real.
Like the journalist, Mario Guevara.
Yes. The U.S. Appeals Court rejected the petition to stop his deportation process. It was scheduled for October 3rd, the day we're focusing on. Just heartbreaking for him and his family, I imagine.
And there was another case, too. Kilmar Abrego.
Right. His request to reopen his migration case was denied by a U.S. judge. He's been transferred to a detention center in Pennsylvania, basically awaiting deportation. These are tough outcomes.
And adding another layer of complexity, the instability in Washington, D.C., the potential U.S. government shutdown that's having real-world effects, too, isn't it?
It really is. The White House announced imminent layoffs. And crucially, for people in El Salvador needing U.S. services, things are grinding to a halt. Visa issuance, for example, will only continue as the situation permits.
So that impacts everything from students to families trying to reunite, maybe even those temporary work visas that bring in remittances.
Exactly. It creates this huge cloud of uncertainty over processes that are vital for many Salvadorans.
Okay, zooming out even further now. Global flashpoints. There was some activity involving Venezuela and the U.S.
Yes, quite a significant incident reported by Venezuela's Defense Minister Vladimir Pedrino Lopez. He reported detecting 5 U.S. F-35 Lightning II aircraft.
F-35s. Those are top-of-the-line stealth fighters. Where were they detected?
Within Venezuela's Flight Information Region, the FIR, near Maiquetía Airport. He suggested they were likely U.S. Marines operating out of Puerto Rico. Entering an FIR like that is seen as a serious provocation.
And how did Venezuela respond? President Maduro?
Maduro's response was immediate. He called for national defense mechanisms exercises over the weekend, basically a show of military readiness, flexing muscles in response to the perceived U.S. incursion.
Meanwhile, over in Russia, Vladimir Putin was talking about NATO.
Yeah, he was pretty dismissive. Called the idea of Russia attacking NATO incredible nonsense. Questioned the logic of Western leaders pushing that narrative. He's trying to frame Russia's position as purely defensive.
But then he made a surprising move regarding the Gaza conflict, endorsing Trump's plan.
Very surprising. He called Donald Trump's peace plan for Gaza a light at the end of the tunnel, and he linked it back to Russia's long-standing support for a two-state solution.
Interesting positioning. Suggesting Trump's approach is the viable path forward, kind of aligning with him diplomatically on that issue, despite other tensions.
It's definitely a notable statement, cutting across typical geopolitical lines.
And just quickly, before we move to sports, we should mention that big fire in the U.S. At the Chevron refinery in California.
Right, near Los Angeles. A massive explosion and fire looked quite dramatic. But the good news, thankfully, was no public health threat reported, no injuries, no evacuations needed, despite the scale of it. Emergency crews got it under control.
Good to hear. Okay, time for our final section. Let's dive into the world of sports and culture. Section 4. Kicking off with football. And maybe not the best news for El Salvador.
Yeah, starting with a bit of a sting, FIFA handed down a significant sanction against El Salvador.
A fine and something else.
Both. A fine of $62,000 Swiss francs. Ouch! And maybe worse, competitively speaking, the capacity of the Cuscatlán Stadium has been reduced for the crucial upcoming World Cup qualifier against Panama.
Why? What happened?
It was due to racist shouts reported during the previous match against Suriname. So FIFA came down hard on that fan behavior.
That's tough. A financial hit and fewer fans allowed for a massive game.
But despite that, the passion's still there.
Oh, absolutely. Tickets for that Panama eliminatory game already completely sold out, even with the reduced capacity. Shows you how much this means to the fans.
And SVCU, the Football Federation, they're taking steps to prevent repeats, right? They are. They've implemented a big security plan, notably including a ban on alcohol access and sales at Las Selectas matches going forward, trying to manage the crowd atmosphere.
Makes sense. What about the team itself? Any player news?
Some updates. Henry Romero and Rafa Tejada are working on recovery at INDS. Gabriel Diazevedo-Richvicki is back training with the senior team. And Panama, they're taking it seriously, calling up 5 new players for the match. It's going to be intense.
Sounds like it. What about drama in the local leagues?
Always something happening. There was a contract dispute. Delson Prado and Metapon couldn't reach an agreement after breaking their contract, so his future's up in the air.
And then that story about Hercules FC, how they let people go.
Yeah, that was stark. They dismissed players and staff apparently via WhatsApp message, citing low performance. Pretty cold way to do business, dismissing people over text.
Wow, definitely impersonal.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, regional tournaments are moving along.
Yep. Olympia from Honduras and Zelaju from Guatemala both secured their spots comfortably in the Copa Centroamericana semifinals.
Okay, zooming out to the global game. The World Cup 2026. They unveiled the ball.
They did. It's called Trionda. Always a bit of hype around the official ball reveal. Also worth noting, there's still some background tension mentioned between FIFA and Donald Trump about potential changes to World Cup venues. Politics never far away, even in sport.
Never is. Okay, away from football, what about other sports? Tennis.
Quick result from the China Open. American Jessica Pegula beat Emma Navarro to make it to the semifinals.
And local Salvadoran athletes making waves.
Yes. Some really inspiring stories here. Herbert Acituno, the powerlifting champion, he's off to Cairo looking for more medals. Great ambassador for the sport.
And Alpha Karina Arue, the mountaineer.
Her quote was incredible. She said, "I think I will climb until the day I die." Just, wow. That's dedication, pure passion for what she does.
Incredible commitment. Any other local sports news?
Karate Do selection moved its base to San Miguel, maybe helping develop talent there. And 3 Salvadoran shooters qualified for the 2026 Central American and Caribbean Games. So, progress on multiple fronts.
Great to hear. And finally, a quick look at entertainment and culture.
Music news. Taylor Swift kicked off what's being called her showgirl era with a new pop album. Big news globally, of course. And locally, big concert news. Guns N' Roses are confirmed for a show in El Salvador.
Guns N' Roses, wow, that's huge. Anyone opening for them?
Yes, local band Ran 42K got the opening slot. Fantastic opportunity for them.
Awesome. And other cultural notes.
CINAR, the National Center of Arts, opened registrations for vocational courses. And preparations are underway for the traditional Ruta de las Flores celebration. So cultural activities happening too.
Okay, that brings us pretty much to the end of this. This packed deep dive into October 2nd and 3rd. Looking back across everything, the main tension really stands out, doesn't it?
It really does. On one side, you have these deep social tragedies, that staggering child abandonment number, Natalia's story, real human cost. And running right alongside it, you have this narrative of economic confidence, tourism growth, big security wins, like that massive offshore drug bust.
Yeah, the $44.8 million seizure, that was huge.
My final takeaway, the sources paint this picture of a nation actively pursuing these big visible goals, infrastructure, like the metro cable, security, like those convictions of former officials. They're definitely getting things done on that front.
I like this.
But at the same time, they're grappling with these really profound internal debates and unresolved issues, the controversial policies like the inclusive language ban, the haircut thing, and maybe most critically, that ticking pension time bomb. The fiscal uncertainty there is massive.
Which brings us right back to where we started, looking at those budget numbers. That $15 million needed for university scholarships, investing in people, future stability, versus the $46.9 million just to run the assembly. So our final thought for you, the listener, is this. What immediate social return on investment do you anticipate from how the 2026 budget seems to be shaping up?
Yeah.
Where do you see the priorities landing right now?
A really important question to reflect on. Friday, October 3, 2025. Welcome to the News El Salvador SV podcast. This space for conversation and reflection, where we explore current affairs in El Salvador and the world together. Search for this podcast on Pandora, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Enter News El Salvador SV on Google and you'll find many options. Or search for us on your favorite platform, you'll surely find us. You can find the PayPal link in the description of this podcast's content. You can make your contribution or donation via QR code. You'll find it on the cover of this content. Your contribution or donation, no matter how small it is $1, $2, or whatever, it helps us. Stay connected and pay for cloud service billing. Collaborate, follow, share, and comment.
And on that note, thank you, as always, for sharing the sources that allow us to have these conversations and really dive deep into the complex reality of these last couple of days.
Absolutely. Until the next deep dive, keep digging into those headlines, keep connecting the dots between policy and people.
See you next time.